We're looking at some of the problems that existed within the United States, despite the fact that they're diplomatically trying to prevent another war. They now possess great economic power for the first time in the nation's history in terms of being having a dominant edge over other nations. But there's a lot of internal issues going on within the United States, and one of them is racial turmoil. You see, at this point, this juncture, Black Americans are trying to make a name for themselves. Um, at this point in the 20s, it's been about 60 years after the Civil War, and Black Americans are trying to assert themselves in a lot of ways, and it's going to cause a lot of conflict because many white Southerners are going to resist, and things are going to turn violent in several capacities. We want to take a look initially, like post Civil War. This is the area, the population density of Black Americans in the United States, and so you can see that a lot of them exist within the South. And this is because originally that's where slavery existed. And when slavery is abolished by the 13th Amendment after the Civil War, many people stay in the South to work as tenant farmers or trying to get their own piece of land because that's what they knew how to do. So they're trying to carve out their own existence in a really difficult environment in the South. We can't get into too much detail, but if you're aware, and you should be at this point, Black people are going to start living in a segregated society and not by choice. White Americans try to do everything they can to create a system of racial hierarchy. And you see this picture right here where public facilities and public accommodations are segregated based on race. There's a court case, if you're interested to check it out, Plessy versus Ferguson, about separate rail cars in Louisiana, where the United States legally said it's okay to separate people by race as long as you provide equal facilities. And these equal facilities were never equal. So Southerners are finding ways to discriminate in terms of public education. Black Americans lacked the educational opportunities that white Americans had. They didn't have, because a lot of times it's connected to educational opportunities, they lacked the financial opportunities. Many banks are unwilling to give out loans to Black men and women who want to start businesses. Black Americans are going to struggle to a great degree, especially in the South. And because they are struggling in the South, many of them decide it's time to give up and move. From the late teens up until 1930, Black Americans move out of the South in large numbers. They move to major urban areas within the United States. We call this the Great Migration. And they're moving to cities for the same reasons that everybody moves to cities. There are more job opportunities there, less racial discrimination compared to the South. There are more amenities and attractions there. This is why people move to cities in the first place. And so a lot of Black Americans are saying, I've had enough. Let's get out of here. You'd also have, at this point, the adults who are leaving in the Great Migration are people who are the children a generation after perhaps the last slaves from the 19th century and the Civil War era. And so they're like, I'm not living like this anymore. So they're going to move out of these southern states into what we would call major urban areas. And so that's where they're going to go and try to make their mark. Even then, when they had success, they are going to run into trouble. In 1921, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where Black people had done a tremendous job at carving out a quality life for themselves, you have the Tulsa Race Massacre. A Black man is accused of assaulting a white woman in a public elevator in a public building, and he's taken to jail where the police plan to investigate, but a white mob decides to try to take matters in their own hands. And when they can't get this Black man out of the police jail, they riot and burn down part of the Black part of city of Tulsa itself. And you see right here that they are going to destroy Black-owned businesses and Black-owned property. People don't have insurance like we would see now. Many people lose everything, things that they had worked very diligently to establish with a great deal of time and energy. And afterwards, the racism is very apparent because you're going to see not only the destruction of land and property, but you see these postcards that are made where the people, the Black men and women who died during the Tulsa race riot, They make a postcard out of the pictures. And these are actual pictures of victims of the Tulsa race riot. And so Black Americans are trying to find their way. And even though it's 60 years after the Civil War, we still see that there are problems and racial tension in the United States, and it's not going to go away. Now, another problem Black men and women face, especially in the South, are lynchings, where any instance of violating laws or even quote unquote unwritten rules of society, if you were Black and you violated certain social hierarchy rules, for example, maybe talking to a white woman or addressing somebody in an improper fashion that white men did not like, they would lynch people. And lynching people means they would just have a public hanging outside of the legal system. They would kill people, and each one of these dots represented a lynching from 1900 to 1931. Now, you also get some changes within Black America for the positive. To fight a lot of the injustice, Black Americans found what's called the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And the NAACP, their sole purpose is to try to help Black Americans achieve equality and to come up with various tactics on how to do that. And the NAACP is still around today, and they're very active in causes where they believe there's injustice, racial injustice going on. And you see the emergence of not only this group, but really a couple different Black leaders at the time. One of these individuals is Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington's largely a self-educated man. He learns a number of trades and industries, and Booker T. Washington is going to be a proponent of what people refer to as accommodation. He believed Black people should try to win the respect of white people through hard work and building up a quiet life to let other people, especially white people, see that Black people could do just about anything that a white person could do, and that over time Black people would be accepted by white people. Now, Booker T. Washington, despite having a number of people who kind of believe in what he does, he's not the only game in town. You also see this gentleman, W.E.B. Du Bois, become another prominent Black leader at the time. Du Bois has a radically different approach. He does not believe in accommodation, in gradually winning the respect of white people. He looks at the Constitution, looks at human beings, and says, we're equal and we demand equality now. We should not have to wait. We should not have to earn the respect of white people. We should be respected just because we are people. And so W.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington might have the same overarching goal, but they definitely have different strategies and ideas about how to get there. And opposite of these gentlemen, you have another fellow who crops up, Marcus Garvey, who is a foreigner initially, comes from Jamaica and moves to the United States, and he starts advocating for something entirely different. Marcus Garvey said, listen, if white people don't want us in this country, let's go back to Africa. He literally comes up with a plan, formulates a plan, and tries to get the funding necessary to start taking Black people back to Africa, and says, let's go back there where the people look like us, and we can ultimately live an existence where we don't have to worry about getting lynched just because we violate some stupid unwritten rule that white Southerners have. All right. So listen, not only is there racial tension between Black and white Americans, but you're also going to see a change with policies towards immigration. And that's where we're going to stop right now, and we'll get to it in our next video.